software test process, or you can say STLC, software testing life cycle. So I will provide brief idea. Anyhow, it is not part of our syllabus. In order to understand the Selenium test process, first recollect this software test process, manual test process. Say, as per industry standard says, STLC varies from one company to another and one project to another. But what we are going to discuss is IEEE standard process, formal process. Some companies may not follow formal process. That is different. But what we are going to discuss is formal process. Okay. See, in software test process, we have four phases of testing. Four phases. Not four phases of testing, four phases. Four phases. Can you tell me, Silpa, manual testing concept? What are the four phases of STLC? Not four phases of testing, four phases of STLC, or four phases of software test process. First phase, Paramita Rai, what are the phases of STLC?
Test planning.
Test planning. Next,
Test case design.
okay, test design. Test cases, scenarios, and etc. Test design. Next,
Test design and execution.
test execution. Next, test closure. Evaluating exit criteria and test closure. Test closure. Here, important tasks. See, important tasks in test planning phase of STLC. Understanding and analyzing requirements. Understanding and analyzing requirements. Next, risk analysis. Next, test strategy implementation. Test strategy is company level. We need to implement test strategy for our project. Test strategy describes all test levels and test types, etc. For organization, we need to implement test strategy for our project. Generally, test lead implements test strategy. Test strategy implementation. Test strategy implementation. Suppose in our project, functional testing, performance testing are there. We need to implement functional testing and performance testing strategy for our project. For other project, functional testing, security testing, compatibility testing types are there. The test lead implements those strategies. Test strategy implementation. Next, see requirement. Next, strategy. Requirement, strategy, how to test. Strategy describes how to test. Suppose requirement is going to another city. Strategy, how to go. By bus, by car, by flight, on foot. See, depends on strategy. Estimations vary. Next, test estimations. High level task. Next, team formation, test plan documentation. Which one is first, Paramita? Team formation is or test plan documentation? Which one is first?
Test plan documentation.
No, that is not formal process. Team formation is first. Why? For test plan documentation, all team members' contribution also required. See,
Okay.
team formation. See, some companies may not follow formal process. That is different. This is standard process. First team formation, then test plan documentation. See, author of the test plan is test lead, but all team members' contribution also required. See, test plan documentation. Next, configuration management planning. Configuration management planning. What is configuration management? It is not mandatory but best practice. Gayatri, have any idea configuration management?
Yes, sir. Actually, I mean, identifying all the, configurable items, basically the documents, maintaining whatever the documents we are maintaining throughout the testing phase. So maintaining them in a particular repository, particular place.
Okay.
So this is
okay. See, storing identification is different. Storing and organizing all configurable items. Storing and organizing all configurable items is called configuration management. See, this configuration management not only for testing team, also for other teams in software development. For developers, it is required for developers, business analyst and project management also. It is not only for testing team. Okay, our testing team point of view, what are the configurable items? What documents we produce during testing? What documents we produce during testing? And what software and hardware we use during testing all comes under configurable items. Okay. Here version control is very important task. Next, traceability matrix documentation. Traceability. Matrix. Documentation. See, generally, test lead creates this document in test planning phase. Throughout the test process, throughout the testing life cycle, all team members update this document. All team members update this document throughout the life cycle. What is the purpose of traceability matrix document? Swapna, what is the purpose of traceability matrix document? Silpa, purpose of traceability matrix document.
For the auditing.
Auditing. Auditing, different term. Parmita Roy, what is the traceability matrix?
To map the requirements with the test cases?
Yes, mapping requirements with test cases so that we can trace all requirements covered or not.
Yeah.
Next.
With the desired.
Okay. Define test environment. Define test environment setup. See, test lead defines test environment setup. Technical support people implements test environment. Here three steps. Define test environment or test lab setup. Implement test environment setup. Next, verify test environment setup. Who verifies test environment setup? Testers. Means team members verify test environment setup during test execution. Okay. Define test environment setup. Here output of this page phase. Output of this phase. Test plan document. Just a brief introduction. I'm not looking to more details. This manual testing concept. Next, test design phase. Here also understanding requirements, analyzation not required, understanding requirements. Next, generate test scenarios outlines. Generate test scenarios. One scenario may have one or more test cases, positive test cases, negative test cases. Generate test scenarios. Next, test case documentation. Next, test data collection. Why I am using test data collection term. Some test data testers prepare. Some data we have to collect from the customer. Suppose cities information is there. That cities information depends on customer's business that we have to collect from the customer. Some test data from developers also. So test data collection. Some test data we prepare. For example, phone number object is there. It has to take 10-digit numeric values. For that we can prepare test data. Next, output in this phase. Output. Test case documents. Next, test data. Okay, na? Just a minute. Tell me, Gayatri, what are the important tasks in test planning phase of STLC?
Yes, sir. To start with, like we have to understand and analyze the requirements and risk analysis, test strategy implementation, test estimates, test estimations, team formation, and test plan documentation, configuration management, and traceability matrix documentation, defining test lab, test environment setup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next, Paramita Rai, what are the important tasks in test design phase?
First, understanding the requirements again, and generate like test scenarios. Under test scenarios, they have like positive test cases and negative test cases.
Test scenarios
And
may have positive and negative cases, that is different. See, generating test scenarios.
test
Next,
scenarios and test case documentation, and then test data collection, because it might be collection from customer, it might be from developer or testers.
Okay. Next, third, test execution. Test execution. See, here what are the important tasks? See, first, verify test environment setup. Already I told here 3 steps. Define test environment setup by test lead. Implement test environment setup by technical support people. Next, verify test environment setup by testers or team members. See, verify test environment setup. Next, create test batches. Execution queue. Create test batches. Next, test execution. Don't confuse. This test execution is task. This above test execution is level. Phase. This selected test execution is phase. This below test execution is task. Here some levels of test execution. First level of test execution, sanity testing or build verification testing or build acceptance testing. Testing, what is sanity testing? Verifying whether the build is acceptable or not by executing basic functionality tests. BVT, build verification testing. BAT, build acceptance testing. See, the sanity testing can be done on every build. After receiving every version of software, first we need to conduct sanity testing. Next, after sanity testing, suppose build is acceptable, then comprehensive testing. Comprehensive testing means executing all possible test cases. Executing all possible test cases. Next, during testing, if you find any deviation from expected, then reporting defects. Defect reporting. Next, after fixing the defects by developers, defect tracking. Tracking for status. Defect tracking. Next, after receiving the next build, modified build, again sanity testing. After receiving the modified build, again sanity testing. Next, after sanity, after accepting the build, and regression testing. Regression testing. Next, same defect reporting and tracking. Regression testing cycle 1. These regression cycles depends on complexity of the application and strength of the development team. Next, again regression cycle 2, like that. Just a minute. Next, at the end, final regression. Final regression. Next, output of this phase. Output. Opened and closed test reports. Opened and closed defect reports. Opened and closed defect reports. Opened, closed defect reports, okay. Closed means after fixing defects, after confirmation testing. Confirmation testing means regression testing. Another name of regression testing is confirmation testing. After confirmation testing, testers close defects. Testers close defects. Say defect reporting by testers. Defect fixing by developers. Next, confirmation testing by testers. Next, defects closing by testers. Closed defect reports, okay, but what is opened defect report? See, due to time constraints, sometimes we postpone defects, generally cosmetic defects. That is opened defect report. Okay, na Paramita Rai, opened and closed defect reports. Sometimes we postpone some defects due to time constraints. Generally, we postpone cosmetic defects only, not severe defects.
Okay.
Tested software. See, next, last phase of STLC or software test process, test closure. Here, what are the important tasks? Evaluating the exit criteria. See, evaluating the exit criteria. Tell me, Silpa, where you can find exit criteria? Where you can find exit criteria?
While executing the program,
Where?
or that
Where you can find exit criteria? How to know the exit criteria? Okay, in test plan document, we can find exit criteria. Exit criteria describes when to stop testing. See, in test plan document, you can find entry criteria, exit criteria, and suspend criteria also. Okay, next, collect all artifacts, all documents. Next, test summary report. Test lead prepares test summary report. Summarizing all test activities. Test summary report. Next, send test deliverables to customers. Send test deliverables to customers. What are the test deliverables? What documents we produce during testing all are comes under test deliverables. Test plan document, test scenarios, test cases, test data, opened and closed defect reports. Next, test summary report. See, these are the important tasks, and one optional task, improvement suggestions for future projects. Improvement suggestions for future projects. Now tell me, Parmita Rai, what are the important tasks in test execution phase? Important tasks in test execution phase.
Verify the test environment setup and create the test batches and then test execution task.
Test execution. Here some levels of test execution. What are the levels?
Sanity testing, and then defect reporting, defect tracking.
After sanity testing, comprehensive testing.
Comprehensive testing, yes. And then defect reporting, and then defect tracking, and then again when after distributing the acceptable, modified build, then again we'll do the sanity testing, like defect reporting and re-regression test. Re-regression testing. Regression testing, and then defect reporting and tracking, like first cycle 1. It depends upon the complexity of the project, and then again the next cycle, we repeat sanity testing, regression testing,
cycle 2, cycle 3, cycle 4, like that. At the end, final regression.
And output is like open and closed defect reports.
And tested software.
Yes.
Okay. Next, Gayatri, what are the important tasks in test closure phase?
Yes, evaluating exit criteria, collecting all the artifacts, and preparation of test summary reports, sending deliverables to test deliverables to customers, and the optional one is improvement suggestions for future projects.
Okay, good. Okay, before the break, I will start test